In today's preaching, we're going to be focusing on strategy versus strategy guides, and what is it that you, as a player, should focus on. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Prophet, and you are about to get preached. So in today's video, we have been discussing the topic of strategy versus strategy guides. And by strategy I mean like direct strategies, and that like applies for multiple games. If it is Hearthstone, League of Legends, Dota, any kind of MOBA games, StarCraft, any kind of RTS, card games, whatever. There are certain aspects which acquire strategy, and other aspects that really just acquire strategy guidelines. Because strategy guidelines is following the sort of pattern of saying what kind of things that you should do to get you along on your journey towards like the goal of being good. Let's take Hearthstone for a great example. Hearthstone, there are multiple really good players. You have Trump, Artosis, etc. Right? Those are good players. They are really good at the game, and they have top-notch strategies and decks that really work out. Like they really just work. They're really good and precise. So that means that people will try to copy them, and that is great when you have some cool decks to copy and cool playstyles. But the more people that do this, the less and less creativity the rest of the player base will get, because there are a lot of people who really watches the medias, who really try to follow up on latest metas, what is good, what is bad, everything, right? But if more people sort of created this way of making guidelines to help people, such as saying, if you want an early rush deck, such as this one, I'm giving like not the top example, but like a viable and understandable example. And then they will, for example, say, here, as you can see, I have emphasized on getting a lot of card draw, because I feel like card draw will really help an early rush deck. And that, even though that might not be the case in your rush deck, in some rush decks that might really help. Then they might say that, okay, so this deck is built around trying to focus on getting their face without trading too much, because the more you trade in the early game, the less you're going to have when the late game arrives, and you're going to be weaker. So just setting up guidelines and saying that this is this kind of cards that you tend to want when you build your deck, when you build and sort of create your creativity. When you let your creativity drive you, and you can just keep on building whatever you want, then that is great. Then those guidelines have helped you to really create that. And there are a lot of people who have problems, who struggles with making decks. I personally, sometimes I'm really terrible at making decks, because I'm not sure how my mana curve will go. So sometimes I will end up with like 10 2-cost spells and units, creatures, minions, whatever. And then I'll have a lot of late game, and then my mid game will be so shitty. So the entire deck will sort of go in a mana curve that is sort of something like this. That is usually not how I would want my deck, and you would want a smooth transition. You would want to be able to survive, and if you have a late game deck, you would want enough cards to help you survive along those lines without forcing you to constantly be top decking. If you have like 3 cards, like total of 7 cards for entire early up to 7 mana, and then you sort of you depend on the top deck, and you depend on just sitting there drawing just the cards that you need. But that's not how the world is. So I think that helping sort of the newer players really be able to let them create their own decks and still giving them sort of frames where they can be a really strong deck usually wants something along these lines, and if you want to focus on this kind of deck, then you will need this kind of cards to help you along the way. And then they can really take the cards that they have and make it into their own kind of deck. Because if not, a lot of people just tend to be like, oh, this YouTuber, if I'm oh, here I found 4 strategy. Whoa, he did a really cool Miracle Rogue deck. I think I will just go ahead and save up and just craft Edwin Van Cleef right off the bat. I could say that. I could also say that, okay, I'll just buy 120 packs and just get so that I have Edwin Van Cleef. Yeah, that have made me a better player if I just copied his. If I just copied the deck that is not his deck, but he made a video about it. If I just copy that, I mean, I'm not a better player. I've just copied someone else. I've not learned anything. But what we need, or what I feel like we need, is that we need a more educated player base. Because as time progresses, there will probably be added more cards. There will be added more unique features, and people who are latecomers who just like didn't feel like they didn't want to jump on Hearthstone hype, so they just wanted to join right like then, at their own pace, when they wanted to play the game. And if they just arrive and like everyone have every card, then they might get fucked over, right? So where do they start? Do they like, well, I guess I just have to throw 120 bucks at it as well? Yeah. Should they do that? I mean, or should they like be able to just like start with their own cards and just like build up and be like, you know what, I feel like this kind of playstyle fits me. What kind of guidelines can I follow to really become better at the game and really learn from that? So, if you have any opinions, please leave them in the comment section. Hope you can give us a like. This has been another Prophet Preaches, and you have just been preached.